التوافق الدقيق للكون هي أحد الحجج الغائية عند أهل الدين في محاولة لإثبات وجود الخالق، والتي تعرف أيضا باسم حجة التصميم أو حجة التصميم الذكي. التوافق الدقيق للكون هو افتراض أن الشروط التي تتيح الحياة في الكون لا تتحقق إلا بتوفر أرقام معينة من ثوابت فيزيائية محددة بدقة ضمن مجال ضيق جدا من القيم، بحيث أن أقل تغيير في أرقام أي من تلك الثوابت الأساسية للمادة سيؤدي إلى تغيير جذري في الكون يجعل من قيام الحياة كما نعرفها الآن أمراً مستحيلاً.
In 1966, Time magazine ran a cover story asking, "Is God dead?" The cover reflected the fact that many people had accepted the cultural narrative that God is obsolete, that as science progresses, there's less need for a God to explain the universe. Given the roughly octillion planets in the universe, that's one followed by 24 zeros, there should have been about septillion planets, that's one followed by 21 zeros, capable of supporting life. With a vast radio telescopic network, scientists listened for signals that resembled coded intelligence. But as the years passed, the silence from the universe was deafening. As of 2014, researchers have discovered precisely zero followed by an infinite number of zeros. What happened? Simply put, the odds against life in the universe are astonishing. Yet, here we are, not only existing, but talking about existing. What can account for it? Can every one of those many parameters have been perfectly met by accident? Doesn't assuming that an intelligence created these perfect conditions in fact require far less faith than believing that a life-sustaining Earth just happened to beat the inconceivable odds? The fine-tuning necessary for life to exist on a planet is nothing compared with the fine-tuning required for the universe to exist at all. Astrophysicists now know that the values of the four fundamental forces, gravity, the electromagnetic force, and the strong and weak nuclear forces, were determined less than 1/1,000,000th of a second after the Big Bang. Alter any one of these four values ever so slightly, and the universe as we know it could not exist.
First, I am by no means convinced that there is a fine-tuning problem. It is certainly true that if you change the parameters of nature, our local conditions that we observe around us would change by a lot. I grant that quickly. I do not grant that therefore life could not exist. I will start granting that once someone tells me the conditions under which life can exist. What is the definition of life, for example? If it's just information processing, thinking, or something like that, there's a huge panoply of possibilities. They sound very science fiction-y, but then again, you're the one who's changing the parameters of the universe. The results are going to sound like they come from a science fiction novel. Sadly, we just don't know whether life could exist if the conditions of our universe were very different, because we only see the universe that we see.
Was there pre-existing material for this extra spatio-temporal being to work with? Or did he just will it into existence, the ex nihilo? Who designed the designer? Don't you run the risk with the presumption of a god and a designer and an originator of asking, well, where does that come from, where does that come from, and locking yourself into an infinite regress? Why are there so many shooting stars, collapsed suns, failed galaxies? We can see with the aid of a telescope. Sometimes we can see with the naked eye. The utter failure, the total destruction of gigantic, unimaginable sweeps of outer space. Is this fine-tuning, or is it extremely random, capricious, cruel, mysterious, and incompetent? In the night sky, you can already see the Andromeda Galaxy. It's heading straight for ours on a collision course. Is that part of a design? Was it fine-tuned to do that? We know that from the red light shift of the Hubble telescope, or rather Edwin Hubble's original discovery, the universe is expanding away from itself at a tremendous rate. It was thought that rate would go down for Newtonian reasons. No, it's recently been proved by Professor Lawrence Krauss, the rate of expansion is increasing. Everything is exploding away even faster. Nothingness is certainly coming. Who designed that? The great physicist Laplace, when showing his working model of the solar system to the Emperor Napoleon, was asked, well, your model seems to have no room for a god in it, for deity. And he said, well, Your Majesty, it still all operates without that assumption.
Another one of those big cosmic mysteries is the apparent problem known as fine-tuning. The idea that the physical constants of nature need to lie within astronomically tight tolerances in order to permit life in our universe. It's certainly a perplexing puzzle that has a lot of really smart people completely stumped, yet Christians are again jumping in as if they have all the answers to one of the deepest mysteries in modern cosmology. And they offer nothing more to the discussion beyond a tortured train of fallacious logic driven head-on into a preconceived bias. Remember that ultimately trying to prove the existence of an entity with virtually unlimited cosmic power, literally the capacity to construct an entire universe and all the physical laws governing it according to completely arbitrary whims. Yet the very notion of fine-tuning itself implies a being that is fundamentally limited by a strict set of physical laws. A being whose creative potential is restricted solely to the mere tweaking of a small set of constants, scale factors, and initial conditions. And even then, the very best that this being can apparently do is construct an overwhelming void of inhospitable nothingness, dotted by the occasional ball of hot plasma and diffuse gas. Life, in the grand scheme of things, is an insignificant cosmic afterthought. a thin film of organic chemistry squished into the surface of an imperceptible rocky dot hiding out in some obscure galactic corner. The very idea of a deliberately engineered universe is patently absurd when less than 1 part in 10 to the 50th of the end product is actually capable of supporting the very thing it was allegedly designed for in the first place. It would be like a multi-billion-dollar oil refinery that produces millions of tons of waste every day, but only 1 functional molecule of gasoline per millennium. The argument itself is an argument for an embarrassingly weak and incompetent deity.